The 1990s was an innovative decade that introduced exciting new technology, legendary movies, and music and television that will be remembered for decades to come, as well as some truly unique fashion trends. The 1990s was also fondly remembered by some as the decade of relative peace and prosperity, as the 90s saw the fall of the Soviet Union, ending the decades-long Cold War, and the rise of the internet ushered in a radical new era of communication, business, and entertainment. Sit tight as we guide you through the decade that was the 90s for Australia.
During the 90s, hip hop was in its golden years, and clubs were booming with electronic music from bands like Daft Punk, The Chemical Brothers, and Slack. Grunge bands such as Nirvana reached out to teens across the world, leaving rock music's popularity intact all the way through the 90s into the 2000s. Weezer, Green Day, Spice Girls, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Blink-182 are just naming a few popular and successful bands and artists from the 90s. Boy bands also hit mainstream media with bands like NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, and Boys to Men.
Boys to During the 90s, the film industry had a bounding amount of remarkable films. The 90s set the film industry by having more technology, improved acting, and better CGI. During this period, films were becoming masterpieces and timeless. The top five timeless films from the 90s were Saving Private Ryan, Toy Story 1 and 2, The Matrix, The Castle, and Dragon Ball Z. Out of these five masterpieces, Saving Private Ryan was the most impactful out of them. Saving Private Ryan was impactful because it displays tragic heroic events during Battle of Omaha Beach and a special task force saving a fellow crewmate deep behind enemy lines. This movie shows the viewers that what it was like during World War II, and see what people had to go to save their fellow crewmates. This movie had World War II veterans going to see psychologists because it was giving them PTSD from this movie.
Popular foods during the 90s consisted of lots of fast foods, microwave foods, snacks, and advertised weight loss foods such as those Hot Pockets, pizza bagels, Slim Fast, Dunkaroos, Lunchables. Also, lots of Western countries like America started to introduce foods from other cultures, typically Italian and Japanese, like pizza, sushi, spaghetti, rice, ramen, noodles, tofu, and different types of pasta.
Plaid miniskirts, double denim, crop tops, overalls, flannel, high-waist bottoms, parachute pants, slip dresses, chokers, and chain belts were all common for a 90s wardrobe. From the early 90s, grunge dominated mainstream fashion. It originated in 1992 when grunge bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden rose to popularity. This look included darker colored plaid shirts, stonewashed or ripped jeans, Doc Martens, combat boots, and high-top sneakers.
Big events. As mentioned previously, the 90s was an exciting time for technological engineering, as many large milestones in technology were reached. For example, in 1991, the internet was officially made available for unrestricted commercial use, and in 1995, online auction website eBay was founded. In 1998, the famous international search engine Google was founded, and Apple Computers released the first iMac computer. However, there were also some not so innovative events. For example, the Gulf War starting in 1990 and ending in 1991, which resulted in an estimated 100,000 Iranian civilian deaths. The lead singer of band Queen, Freddie Mercury, had died from AIDS in 1991, and the 90s also saw a worldwide increase of the production, use, and smuggling of the drug trade, with drugs becoming more addictive and destructive. J.K. Rowling also published the first Harry Potter book, and the European Union was created when the Maastricht Treaty was signed.
games during the 90s. Gaming was starting to become a big phenomenon with the release of the Super Nintendo on the 9th of September 1991. It was the first of its kind. The Super Nintendo was different to the Game Boy and other game consoles of its generation. It was a larger console that could run faster games, unlike Odyssey. Instead of just having a joystick, it had a proper controller. With the release of the Super Nintendo came Super Mario games such as Super Mario World and Mario Kart in 1992. Soon after the Super Mario was released, came the first ever PlayStation on the 3rd of December 1994. The Game Boy Color was released on October 21st, 1998. Some of the most iconic games of the 90s were Final Fantasy 2 and 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, The Legend of Zelda, Mortal Kombat, Half-Life, Metal Gear Solid, and my favourite, Pokemon.
The 1990s saw a new generation of actors emerge. The famous Russell Crowe made 9 Australian films before heading to America to make even bigger blockbusters in 1997. Hugh Jackman was also on the rise, with 3 films under his belt before getting his chance in X-Men in 2000. Heath Ledger also made 3 films before starring in the major hit 10 Things I Hate About You in 1999. There were also international celebrities who had captivated Australia, these including Mel Gibson, Tom Cruise, Robin Williams, Harrison Ford, and many more.
The sayings back in the 90s were, let's bounce. The term let's bounce corresponds to let's leave or let's get out of here. For example, hey yo, Harry dog, let's bounce to the burger shop nearby, man. Another example, crib. The term crib represents your house, your home, or a place of residence. For example, hey Alec and Cordell, want to go back to my crib? Finally, what's up, home skillet? The term home skillet relates to friends, especially close friends. For example, what's up, home skillet? Does you want to bounce to my crib?
Australia had a fairly strong relationship with the outside world, despite being completely surrounded by water. In 1990, Australia's main trading, importing, and exporting partners consisted of Japan, the United Kingdom, Germany, Korea, and New Zealand.
During the 90s, there were plenty of wars, including the Archinese War from 1873 to 1904, the Philippine-American War from 1899 to 1902, the South African War from 1899 to 1902, the War of the Thousand Days from 1899 to 1903, the Boxer Rebellion from 1900 to 1901, the Moro Wars from 1901 to 1913, the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905, the Big War from 1906 to 1909, and one of the most major wars during the 90s was the Gulf War from 1990 to 1991. The war started because of the Iraq president Saddam Hussein ordered an invasion occupation neighboring Kuwait in early August 1990. Hussein defended United Nations Security Council demands to withdraw from Kuwait by mid-January 1991, and the Persian Gulf War began with a massive US-led air offense known as the Operation from Desert Storm.
The Desert Storm was a good operation. During the fight for rights, during the 90s, they fought for women's rights. During this time, there was a second wave of feminism, which led to women having more rights. In 1993, the girl power movement was set. In this movement, there were more female actresses, singers, and much more. Also, in 1993, the author Alison Yara released a very influential book called 90 Bitch. The book contains how men was treating her and her mother, the fake promises the men and the lies that they were told. This book helps women to get more rights and be treated more respectfully. During the late 90s, there was an underground punk movement. This movement, women were dressing up like dressing up and going all women punk concerts. When they dress up like male rock and roll people. This helped women rights by having good female singers at these concerts, and this led to male curiosity, and more people were influenced. So therefore, the 90s fought for women rights.
There were three Australian prime ministers during the 90s. Bob Hawke from 1983 to 1991, Paul Needing from 1991 to 1996, and John Howard from 1996 to 2007. In 1997, the Human Rights and Equal Opportunities Commission published a national inquiry on the forcible removal of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children from their families, titled the Bringing Them Home Report. In June 1999, the GST was passed as legislation with the goal of simplifying and overhaul the existing, and was brought into effect in the 2000s.
The 90s was when technology was beginning to come very big. It was starting to become the future. As we can see now, there have been many new jobs that have come from technology. Some of the biggest technological advancements that have been invented during the 90s were text messages. In 1992, the first text message was sent, giving rise to an entire new language that was heavy on lol, oh my god, and BRB. The search engine Google was newly introduced in August 1998, which changed the way people could find information. Another was Amazon, which was founded 5th of July 1994, which changed the way people could purchase things. Instead of having to physically go to the shops, you can now purchase items online, have been delivered to your house. Some of the others were the DVD, the first GSM Nokia phone 1011 in 1992. Building works. Some of the major building works that happened during the 90s, such as the Getty Museum, 1997, by Richard Murr, the Petrons Towers in 1997 by Caesar Pelli, the Baylor Foundation in 1997 by Renzo Piano, the Mason Board DX 1998 by Rem Koolhaas, the Vetra Fire Station 1994 by Zaya Hadid, the Jewish Museum Berlin 1999 by Daniel Libeskind, the Lord's Media Center 1999 by Future Systems, the Jane Mira Tajibo Cultural Center 1998 by Renzo Piano, and the Gillingham Bibliothèque 1997 by Frank Gray.
Environment discoveries. The environment discoveries in the 90s were so in the 1900s, 1990, there were the 20th anniversary of Earth Day, and 140 countries celebrate. Later in the year, there were a Clear Air Act of SOx and NOx emissions from electrical power plants of the U.S. stratosphere, and this helps prevents acid rain. During 1991, there was a war of Kuwait and Iraq, and creating environmental disaster with an oil spill. In 1992, NASA found a concentrated amount of chlorine monoxide in the stratosphere of the ozone layer all over the northern parts of northern countries like the northern part of the U.S., Canada, Europe, and Russia. NASA estimated it will be depleted later in late winter. In 1995, Woods was reunited to Yellowstone National Park, and in 1999, the world population increased to 6 billion and a half of population. and half the population are living in cities.
The 90s was a decade impacted heavily by the effects of the social and economic revolutions from the former 2 decades. The removal of tariff protection from local industries and freeing up trade helped many. However, there were extensive amounts of Australians that were negatively affected by this. Many factories and manufacturing industries closed, reducing job opportunities.
To conclude, the decade that was the 1990s was an overall exciting and innovative time for Australia, and it will be remembered by many as the decade that shaped Australia, as it helped develop Australia into the nation that it is today.
Amen.
Thank you
Amen.
for listening.
Hallelujah. May God bless, miss.
Sorry, Miss Floyd.